The new Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom trailer left us with as many questions as it did answers. Who is the owner of the green spectral hand? What tribe does this new power belong to? Why does this new tribe have so much in common with the Sheikah, Zonai, and Twilight all at the same time? And finally, who is this mysterious being on the mural? In my quest for answers, I've begun a globe-trotting adventure across the 3D renditions of Hyrule, and today I'll be sharing some of my findings from Skyloft. What's good, everyone? I'm Faron and today we're investigating historical sites, artifacts, and more in The Legend of Zelda. Let's get started. Sometimes it's best to look to the past for insights on the future, and that's exactly why our journey begins in Skyloft, home to the cycle's beginning. Skyloft has a number of interesting artifacts. Starting with the stonework, we can see that it doesn't carry any major similarities to the architecture used by the new tribe in Tears of the Kingdom. But the statues and monuments present all over the island provide us with essential information. The stonework, bird monuments, and loftwing statues on Skyloft and even on the surface below don't match with the new tribe's work featured in Tears of the Kingdom. Rather than having a focus on dragons, all the statues associated with Skyloft, Hylia, and her people all heavily feature birds. Skyloft's an entire floating city free of any cultural influence beyond its own. There's no Gerudo City, nor Death Mountain Tribe. Not even the Zoras. There's nothing up here. Throughout the game's story, there's no active trade between other nations or cultures. This may seem like an obvious point, but let's take a step back and look at our own world for a moment. Trade does more than simply exchange goods. Culture, religion, technology, and even ideas can all be influenced by trade with outside sources. Going back to Skyloft, this is a key element to focus on, because that means whatever stonework we find in Skyloft can't be reasonably attributed to another group. It's primarily going to be of Skyloftian make, and in the specific worship of Hylia. That's the key. Every monument on Skyloft is shaped either as a bird or an angelic woman in reference to Skyward Sword's loftwings and Hylia herself. In other words, whoever was busy overhauling the Sky Islands above is more than likely not Skyloftian, or by extension Hylian. That also means the dragon imagery of the Sky Islands is more than likely not in worship or in honor of Hylia either. It's not a 100% deconfirmation, but it's observable evidence that potentially eliminates Hylia as a candidate for being the god or goddess on the stone carving, which is clearly made by the new tribe featured in Tears of the Kingdom. It may also provide additional evidence to debunk Hylia's hand being the spectral green hand, aside from the energy being a color outside of her usual color range. However, this is where things get really interesting. But before we can discuss this next finding, we need a change of scenery. So let's go to the place where the hero's journey truly began, inside the goddess statue. Alright, here we are. I've brought us here to discuss an irregularity, an exception to the observation I made before. Hylia's power never manifests in the color green. That much is still true, but there is a singular artifact that stands as a single exception to this rule. The goddess sword itself. This may sound like a reach, as the goddess sword isn't fully green. It's more of a teal or bluish-green color, but you know what else is bluish-green? Some of the lights from the new energy featured in Tears of the Kingdom. The green energy fluctuates between a solid emerald green to a bluish-green, and the goddess sword is very clearly a bluish-green sword. Additionally, when fully upgraded to the Master Sword, the green pattern on the hilt of the blade matches the green pattern on 5 stockings. While small and more than likely coincidental, I'd like to use this observation to propose an idea. Theoretically, time could be cyclical in Zelda, right? We've got double Ouroboros symmetry as well as power focused on rewinding time in the newest game. We may even be setting up the world to go back to the Skyloft point in the loop. But let's get back to the point. The spectral blade in Tears of the Kingdom is that same bluish-green the energy is colored. The Skyward Sword is a fairly close color. If we use the reversal ability in conjunction with the tears to reforge the blade, perhaps the reversion takes it all the way back to being the goddess sword. Maybe with that spectral energy flaring out of the metal blade to increase its power and compensate for its weaker form. I've previously theorized that the Blade of Evil's Bane may be the focal point of Tears of the Kingdom. This type of development would match up well with that, while simultaneously showing the cyclical nature of this world. It would also be in line with how the Master Sword appears damaged in the original Breath of the Wild logo, but is totally fine once you pull it free from its pedestal in Korok Forest. However, this is only a theory, one that would only really work if the time is cyclical interpretation of the double Ouroboros symbol is correct. The primary takeaway from Skyloft's main island is that we have more reasonable evidence to eliminate Hylia from the list of suspects for being on the stone carving. We can also be sure that the structures in Tears of the Kingdom are almost assuredly not of Skyloftian origin. And before we leave this chamber, there's one last observation I'd like to show you. Now, many people have suspected that maybe the person on the carving is Hylia. In fact, you could even hypothesize that those protrusions on the head that I thought were the dragon's ears might be Hylian ears, but super long. There's something interesting I want to show you. Take a look at Hylia here on the goddess statue's innards. Doesn't her face seem a little weird here? It's a bird's face. This is a rare depiction of Hylia with a non-human face. By that logic, it is theoretically possible that the stone carving could be Hylia with a dragon's face. But why the change in look? That's the question here. Many carvings and statues of Hylia throughout the ages have a human woman's face. So what's the deal with this? Here she's got the face of a loftwing. I highly doubt this was a mistake. And because it was found in the same chamber as the goddess sword, it's quite possible that this is the oldest depiction of Hylia that we have on file. I personally believe that Hylia is not the woman on the stone carving, but this is one of those rare sites where I look and I go, But now that we've discussed the stonework and relics of Skyloft, let's head outside. I think one of our first stops today should be the Skyloft Graveyard. Our previous observation on Tears of the Kingdom Sky Islands drew parallels with this site, so I'd like to investigate it during the day, as well as fly by it from a similar angle, just to see if I can get a closer match in resemblance. Flying by, you can notice that despite replicating the angle as best as I could, the tree placement isn't really correct. Moreover, there's two trees in Breath of the Wild. You could attribute this to trees growing after the fact, but it is important to note that the placement isn't entirely correct. With that little test out of our way, let's head to Skyward Sword's next major point of interest, Thunderhead. I would say that quite a few of us have made note of the violent storm clouds in the new overworld, guarding some unseen area within its violent clouds. This draws quite a few parallels with Thunderhead, so I thought I'd dive into our resident storm cloud zone and see what I could find. To my surprise, there is one interesting thing of note in here. Initially, I had flown by the giant tower just to see if it had any similarities with the large tower we see in Tears of the Kingdom Sky Islands, but there's no real match in architecture. However, what's interesting is what happens when we go inside. Take a look at the renditions of Hylia in this tower. These depictions of Hylia don't have the loftwing face, they have the human woman face. Why is it that the oldest potential chamber has the loftwing faces, but all the other pieces of art don't? What did the ancient people of Skyloft know that we didn't? Could the being on the carving be Hylia after all? Based on what I've seen today, I don't think so, but something weird is definitely going on here. Our next stop in our quest for answers in Tears of the Kingdom will be the surface of the Sky Era's Hyrule. We'll be dropping down in order, so our first stop is the forest. Will we find evidence of Hylia being the woman on the carving? Or perhaps we'll find evidence of the elusive Zonai tribe. But what do you think? Is the woman on the mural Hylia? Or is it someone else altogether? If you've made any other interesting observations in the sky, please feel free to share them below. Work's been a bit busy lately, we've just hit busy season, but I'll try to get these out as quick as I can. But if you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more Zelda content. I'm Faron, and this has been the first episode of The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, MythHunters, Quest for the Woman on the Mural. See you next time.